Hello and welcome to Unleashed, the show that explores how to thrive as an independent professional. If you've been thinking about setting up your own independent consulting practice, you can visit umbrex.com and click on the link to start your own firm. We've put together a guide with 90 videos and 30 templates on how you can get started. I'm Will Bachman, and I'm here today with Rachel Weingarten, who runs Fast Moving Content, FMC, and she has a long bio and a true independent professional's portfolio. So Rachel has been a celebrity makeup artist. She's worked with celebrities on designing their own makeup lines. She's a journalist and author. She's a marketing consultant. She gives keynote speeches. She's a beauty historian. She's written 3 books. She started a low-fat mini muffin bakery and sold it. She's had a show on CNN called Enterprising Women. Rachel, you have a lot going on. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Will. Suddenly hearing that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is a lot going on. But
it is a true modern independent professional's portfolio of income and activities. And I didn't even mention that you also started and run a nonprofit. So a lot to talk about. I'm curious. Let's start with being a celebrity makeup artist. So tell me a little bit about how does someone become a celebrity makeup artist?
Sure. I find that most people are intrigued with the fact that I was a celebrity makeup artist. And I should add that I do come out of retirement very infrequently, if it's someone I used to work with. And that now, during the pandemic, I've had a lot of former politician clients coming back around and saying, oh, we're in video suddenly. What the heck do? We don't look that good. But let me go back to your question. I actually started out the way most makeup artists do, which is doing weddings. I was working full time. I was going to college at night, and I was studying makeup artistry on weekends. And then I went to Paris to study for a while.
Well, wait a minute. How does someone study makeup artistry?
It's really fun.
Is it? I mean, are there like schools for this, or is it one-on-one tutoring? Like, how do you study this?
You know what? It's all of the above. There are absolutely schools for this. For somebody interested in starting out, you can even take a lesson. Not right now, obviously, because you can't really walk to a makeup counter the way that you once did. But you can definitely take lessons. There are schools. I was very fortunate. I apprenticed with he's now deceased, but he was a celebrity makeup artist. He used to take me along on modeling shoots, and we met quite by accident. I found that a lot of my best professional relationships were, meeting by mistake and being tenuous, sort of going after it, saying, gee, I want to work with this person. So, I started the way every makeup artist did. I did weddings. I paid my college tuition by doing makeup at weddings.
Wow, really?
And
like, how much does a wedding typically pay? I mean, advance it to today's dollar. So when you do,
I couldn't really advance it to today's dollars,
right,
because there are so many different levels of makeup artistry.
Okay.
But so you might have people who would do, say, I don't know. I'm really going to do some weird high lows here. Someone could charge $50 a face. Someone could charge $800 a face. Someone could say, oh, I'm a celebrity makeup artist and here's a bride and it's a couple of grand. It really depends.
Wow.
But for me, a good Sunday with 2 full wedding parties meant that my college tuition for the semester was paid.
What? Wait a minute. What?
Yeah, I was really good. And I tried to factor in, how many faces, how much time. I guess even before I realized it, I was, doing everything. I had my own line of cosmetics. I would sell products. But my whole thing has always been to make people feel beautiful and okay. I'm in an industry. I've always vaguely been in the beauty industry in some level or another. And unfortunately, insecurity is usually what drives it. You know, you have to improve yourself. And with me, I laser focus on the best parts of people. And I think that's why I did really well as a makeup artist, and I do really well as a speaker and a motivational speaker, because I try not to see people's faults. You know, of course, I'm critical and cranky like everybody else on Twitter, but I joke about the fact that nobody would ever go out on dates if I set people up on a blind date, because all I would do was rave and see people's best parts. You know, my sister jokes that I once introduced her to a friend of mine, just said, oh, you know, best friend, not a dating thing. And she said the way I was raving about my friend, she thought she was going to be, you know, a top model or whatever it was. But no, it was just my friend. I just only saw her best parts.
I want to understand this wedding thing. So, like,
sure, let's go back to it.
Yeah. So how long? Like, so you show up, and this is for I guess the bridesmaids, and I don't know, maybe the mothers or something. Like, how long does that whole thing take? Are you doing it at the house or at a hotel or something? Like, how long does that process take?
Really depends. Again, everything depends. It depends on how much time we've banked in. It depends on, do they want me to travel with them? I've had, in my celebrity days, I've had people who wanted me to sleep over in their walk-in closet over the weekend to touch up their makeup after a big date and not let this person know they were there. People, you would be amazed at what people want to spend on. Obviously, I turned down that, but I've had people book the entire day, even if it was 3 or 4 hours of time.
Wow.
You know, people just want to be pampered. People want to feel beautiful. You know, they might weep after the ceremony and they want you to touch it up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I've had so many grooms try to sneak over to me and say, you know, can you get rid of my double chin? Can you get rid of these acne scars? You know, now we kind of accept the fact that everybody might, you know, improve their looks. But a couple of years ago, it wasn't quite as commonplace for a groom to tell you, I don't really like these jowls. What can you do about it?
Yeah.
But I did, when I studied makeup artistry, I studied special effects makeup too. You know, so like oozing, bleeding, disgusting things. I could do that for you too if you want.
What was the kind of the sales process to lock down one of these deals where you're doing a wedding that one day can pay for a whole, you know, to a semester of college tuition? That's pretty impressive. Like, would you meet multiple times with the bride, or was it just like, hey, here's my reputation?
No.
Reputation.
It was my reputation.
Wow.
Yeah, as with most things in my professional life, it's my reputation. You know, my name is my reputation. My good work is my reputation. And I don't slack off because, you know, I'm good at something. And I don't believe in false modesty either, because I work my ass off. You know, I'm constantly studying. I'm constantly learning. So even as a makeup artist, I was constantly trying to figure out, how can I be better? How can I make this person's pictures reflect the joy they felt? So I might meet with them once, have a try-on. You know, we would test the lighting and what they were going to wear. And I had scammers, which was pretty evil. I had people who it was their actual wedding, but because I, charged less for a try-on, they would lie and say it was a try-on when it was the actual ceremony. And I figured, karma will get them one way or another. Because, individual contractors, it's like, come on, respect our time, respect our talent. And then I would discuss with them what worked, what didn't work. I took test shots or had the photographer there. And I took it very seriously, and I would be exhausted and my hands would be cramped and painful after some marathon wedding session. But it's very important to people. It's their day. It's very different now with Instagram culture, with so many people declaring themselves to be something. We are all makeup artists now, or we are all influencers. But I guess you see the results in the end product.
Yeah.
You see if people can come through or not.
You mentioned that you had your own cosmetic line. Tell me a little bit about the process of getting that created.
Well, I'll tell you two things. I'm really excited now to be in the process of doing R&D on another line, and I'll get back to that. There were colors. I was an art major in college, among other things. I had lots of majors because, as I mentioned, I was working full time, so I wasn't in a rush to get my degree. So I just figured, let me keep learning. So I used my art background to blend colors when I was doing makeup, and I would come up with custom colors for people. Now you might find a lot more inclusiveness. You might find more tints that work on faces of color. You didn't quite find that, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I was constantly blending. And I remember that initially I would go, there were these two ladies who lived, vaguely in the Broadway area, sort of near Hell's Kitchen. And they were chemists, and they used to help me develop colors and products that worked and that you wouldn't sweat off and cry off. And then I just worked with different vendors coming up with formulations I liked. And what would happen would be, usually I would do something at the tryout, people would love it and say, okay, bring that with you to the wedding, I want to buy it. So I would sell a fair share. My sister was a teacher at that point, and people she worked with were like, ooh, I need this lipstick or that lipstick. People really wanted to buy it. Part of it was that sort of personal approach. They knew me, they trusted me. They knew I wouldn't steer them wrong and sell them a garish color, and they knew they could talk to me about it. And now, for the past couple of months, we did talk about my nonprofit. One of the things that I have been doing, vague hiccups. One of the things I've been doing is developing a new line of cosmetics, a very simplified, pared down line. And part of what that will be is every purchase, the majority of the funds go to charity. They will go to our nonprofit. So you're feeling beautiful, you're feeling good, and whenever you buy something, you're giving money to charity. You're helping people. So I'm very excited about that.
That's very cool.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the process of being a celebrity makeup artist. So how did that work? Was that for photo shoots, or when the person is going to go out to some event, or would you follow them around the world? Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
All of the above. I mentioned to you earlier in a private conversation that the way I got into doing celebrity makeup artistry was quite by happenstance. I was walking around the city being Manhattan. I'm a New York native, and somebody was following me around a department store, and when I chose a certain cosmetic, she would go afterward and buy it. I later found out, I sort of recognized her. She started talking to me. It turns out that she was, I guess, an heiress to a cosmetic line. She was intrigued by some of the foreign brands that I was picking up, which some of them I later consulted for. She told me she had an event that weekend. We were talking, and I said, well, you should do this, you should do that. And she said, you do my makeup. I said, okay, sure. I did her makeup. She loved it. She started introducing me to her friends, and some of her friends were famous. I will admit to being initially a little bit starstruck. I would do modeling shoots. I do photo shoots. I did some film. I have very, very ironclad NDAs. I can tell you that the most money I was ever offered was to write a kiss and tell book about some of my former celebrity clients, and I declined. It was interesting. It was weird. Celebrities, many of them are just in a different astral plane than the rest of us. Some of them don't actually see you as a person, but more as a commodity. I have high heels. I have the person who does my makeup, and some are just lovely and wonderful.
Yeah.
It's
Set the scene for me a little bit. So you're, um, doing someone's makeup, some celebrity. I don't know, like how long does that take? And are as you're going through that process, are they chit chatting with you? Are they on the phone with agents and broker, and their, managers and
it
stuff?
depended. Yeah, it depended. There's usually a coterie of people around them. Again, there is no usual because it depends on the age of the person. It depends what it's for. Um, some there are so many different details that go into it. But there's usually an assistant. There's usually somebody doing their hair. There might be someone doing their nails. With one celebrity, she had somebody with little baggies. And if I would blot her lips with a tissue, she would have the person grab it and throw the tissue in the baggie so that, God forbid, I wouldn't sell it on eBay. As though my goal in life was to sell used Kleenex on eBay because X celebrity touched it. It was just this bizarre little world sometimes. And some were very grateful, and some were just not. Some just expected. And, some would have surgery scars, a facelift or intense Botox or filler. And, I'm gingerly trying not to touch the inflamed section.
Mm.
And I'm asking, trying to be very subtle, well, when did you get this procedure? And some would just lie to your face. What procedure? There is no procedure. It was just so strange, really, really strange, but fun.
And okay, you mentioned that you also worked with celebrities on developing their own product lines of
Hmm.
cosmetics. Could you walk us through the process end to end of what that's like, developing a product line for a celebrity?
Sure, sure. I did mention I don't really talk about my celebrity clients, but one that pretty much everyone associates me with was Christina Aguilera in her early days. And one of the things that I did was develop her first cosmetic line. And what was interesting with a young starlet, obviously I won't touch on anything that I'm not allowed to talk about, but with someone just starting out, it's usually the team of people around her who are more heavily in development than the person themselves. And the same ways that you might have seen 70s and 80s iconic designers' names start to appear on everything, sometimes it's just, selling the right to license their name. Um, so with some celebrities, it was just a matter of, okay, this person needs a cosmetic line. Here's a fabulous cosmetic line. Let's make this connection. In more recent years, I've done copywriting and branding. So let's say I worked with the Betty Page estate. And that was a little more complex because you really want to honor this woman's legacy. You want people who are fans of her X number of years after her heyday to still feel like they have some of that glamour. So again, everything that I have ever done has always been on an extremely individualized basis. So the process could be, here's celebrity X and she has a favorite color, and we want everything in this brand to be kissed by this color. Or maybe it's we want to rebrand this person's image as being more natural. So we'll come up with a line of cosmetics that make it appear that she is more authentic and natural than she is. So it's pretty complex. There's so many meetings that are behind the scenes. And in my guise as a cosmetic consultant, I could be brought in any stage of the process, from doing the entire brand and working with the cosmetic chemists on the formulations to only coming in at the last minute and saying, no, I don't think this works. Let's get rid of that and add this instead.
Yeah. And when you say
Everything is very,
when you
yeah.
say doing the entire brand, so what would all of like that? What would the whole thing include? I imagine it's like the the visual identity of the brand and the values of the brand and the kind of words it uses and the look and
Everything.
feel.
Yeah, you would work with that person, with their team, with their, whoever is plotting out the branding. Do they have a movie coming up? Are they a superhero? Are they a detective? What do people think about this person? What about their quirks? What about their skin color? How does that play into who they are? Is that something we'll highlight? What about the textures? What about the price points? What about the names of the products? How many products should we have? How should we price these products? Where should they be available? Who should we look to as our retail partner? Will we be doing any sweepstakes or promotions or launches? When do we want to be on counter? How often will we refresh the brand? What should it smell like? What should it remind us of? What should it make us want to do? And I'm endlessly fascinated by cosmetics. It's absolutely fascinating to me how transformative it is, and how for thousands of years women and men, have used this sort of visual alchemy to change the world, the way the world views them, or to give themselves the confidence, to face the world, literally.
Well, that's a good lead into your work as a historian of cosmetics. Tell us a little bit about the books you've written and the kind of work you do digging into the history of cosmetics.
Sure. I have been endlessly fascinated by beauty and cosmetics, and I've always been studying and reading about it. And my first book was Hello Gorgeous, Beauty Products in America, 40s through 60s. And that was studying the advertising of the mid-century. For me, on a personal level, the mid-century has always been a very fascinating time. I'm the youngest child of Holocaust and concentration camp survivors. So while my parents or grandparents were, literally facing genocide by the Nazis, the rest of the world might have been listening to big band music and, getting dressed up. So for me, I always studied that era because I wanted to see the beauty, the joy, the hope. It was considered patriotic to wear red lipstick during World War II. And after that, what we then came to see as the Mad Men era. After that, what happened? When did beauty become this driving force again? Women's spending power. When did it become a symbol of rebellion, a symbol of power, a symbol of just saying, this is for me, this is not, to attract a husband or to retain my husband. So the mid-century was something that always fascinated me, but I went much further than that. I do a lot of keynote addresses, and one of the things that has always been fascinating to me is going back where, I mentioned the alchemy, but the actual cosmetic breakdown. What are these products? How do we make them? How do we develop them? How were they used in ancient times? There's such a strong history. I did a program. I was asked by LVMH and Parsons School of Design to create a program for their luxury, brand students. And what I came up with was from Cleopatra to the Kardashians, a short history of beauty. And I've taught on beauty marketing and fragrance marketing on the graduate level and undergrad, a lot of different ones. And I remember sort of being intimidated my first class, and that was at FIT. And I had all these executives, from Chanel and just every brand, and they were sitting in my classroom, and I was terrified to speak to them. And the same when I faced, the Society of Cosmetic Chemists, until I realized that many of these people knew the here and now, but they didn't understand what brought us to this place.
What were some of the surprising things that you discovered when you were researching that first book about the mid-century, cosmetics in the U.S.?
I have to think about that question. one of the things I think that fascinated me the most was that sort of one-size-fits-all philosophy. Here we might have a hideous coral color lipstick, and the mostly men in the industry are going to sell this to you and tell you this is what you need. Again, it was a very heavily male-dominated industry. You might have the Max Factors. There's been more attention now to Madam C.J. Walker, who came before. She developed the first line for African American of hair care, but there really weren't many women entrepreneurs. And I think that was always so bizarre to me. Here's a product used by women, and you didn't have that many women creating it or branding it or selling it. This was on the cusp of Estee Lauder or Avon. So it was just this sort of disconnect between who used it and what their hopes were for. Everything has changed.
Yeah.
The internet and social media have drastically changed what our perceptions of beauty are. In the mid-century, there was still this level of conformity. The big difference, as shown in old advertisements, is the femme fatale the brunette or is it the blonde? There weren't, the many, many different shades of brown and black and everything in between. It was, this is the skin color. But those perceptions had been around for thousands of years. In ancient Japan, they might have been using nightingale droppings to whiten their skin. There was an article a couple of years ago saying that nightingales were becoming extinct. That something that had been used for thousands of years was still being used. So I guess that whole what's old is new again.
Yeah. And what were some of the primary sources that you used for that? Was it a lot of looking at old magazines and their advertisements?
A lot of looking at old magazines, a lot of looking at old advertisements and speaking to people who had lived through it. That was crazy and amazing. I feel also that I'm drawing a blank on her name right now, but I spoke to one of Grace Kelly's bridesmaids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was amazing. And we stayed in touch for a while. And, sorry, there's a siren going by.
No, that's perfect. That's podcast verite. That's true.
Yeah, there you go.
True life intruding there, New York City.
Yeah, we're just having a moment where we got real. But yeah, it was speaking to people who had lived through it of different ages and stages. And that was amazing. Speaking to different industry people. Speaking to someone who was in the Advertising Hall of Fame who said, I don't really want to be mentioned by name. Rita Gam, that's who I spoke with. She was in a couple of movies. She was amazing. Very interesting woman. I called Buckingham Palace and I asked if I could speak to Queen Elizabeth. I have no idea where I decided that I can do that, and I still have the email because I loved it so much. My mother had told me that as a very young girl, she heard that Queen Elizabeth drank barley water, and that's why her skin was so beautiful. Okay, and my mother actually saw Queen Elizabeth once in Canada, and she still talks about it, how glamorous she was and how Prince Philip was so beautiful and amazing in real life. And I said, okay, I am writing a book about mid-century beauty. I'm going to call the Queen. And so I called, and I went through a process of speaking to different people. And finally, one of her lovely aides sent back an email. And I sort of remember what he said almost word for word. He said, there is so much that is known about the Queen. There are some things she would like to keep private. And so she's not going to reveal if she drinks barley water or not to keep her skin beautiful. And I thought that's the most amazing thing on earth. We know everything about the queen, but she doesn't want us to know her beauty secrets.
Barley water. I'm trying to imagine how that would help your skin. I
There is
don't even know what barley water is. Is it like what water that's been soaked with barley?
there is actually a drink in the UK. It's some sort of barley water drink.
Okay.
But I did research into the actual barley water. There was some sort of treatment where you would ferment the barley water, and it was supposed to be, I guess, an early sort of I don't know, but it was supposed to be a treatment. Some women drank it. Some women washed their faces with it.
Okay.
But we will never know if the queen does.
I mean, barley water to me sounds like kind of an upper crust term for beer. Like, oh yes, pass me the barley water.
A bit of barley water. It sounds pretty gross, you know, but we'll never know.
Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about your consulting work for cosmetic companies. So tell me
Sure.
the types of projects that you get pulled into.
I consult for a lot of companies. Okay, I don't only consult for cosmetic companies. I'm happy to speak about my work with cosmetic companies. Is that what you'd like to focus on?
Oh well, I mean, just give us the broader view. Yeah, what types of consulting projects do you do?
Sure. I consult on everything from TV projects that need to be saved. You know, my partner and I, at one part, we worked with American Idol right after it was canceled in its first season. But I work with, so many different kinds of companies, mostly CPG companies, different, I worked with the Gossip Girls books and film, the TV versions, anything from marketing strategies to promotional partnerships to analyzing or studying, what they've been doing. A couple of years back, I worked with the Shuimura brand, a Japanese heritage brand, and I believe it's now owned by L'Oreal. And when it was coming over to the States, it wasn't quite as widely known as it could have been. Even the way back when Marilyn Monroe used Shuimura cleansing oils. So sometimes it's a matter of figuring out what will work with the American market. I consulted for one of the UK's top bra companies, and they work really well over there. It's a very cheeky and tongue-in-cheek branding, but over here it would have been something that put people off. I did work with
Give us
a major.
Can you give us an example of something cheeky that wouldn't work so well in the U.S.?
I can't because it's going to be too widely recognized if you
Okay.
Google it.
All right.
But there were expressions used that might have been seen as inoffensive or cute in the UK. And here, I really don't need a focus group to tell me what's not going to work. I'm happy to work with focus groups, but sometimes with a cosmetic company or a different company, they'll just say, listen, we need an hour of your time before we close a deal. What do you think about this?
Yeah. All right.
A global brand just acquired another global brand. And, they came to me with this top secret kind of thing. Can we get you for an hour on the phone with our team? And can you talk them? We're just going to ask you some questions off the top of your head. What do you think? And that's always interesting for me because in a situation like that, I will not research it. If they want my gut instinct, that's what I'll give them. I'm not going to do the background if they want my gut,
And you also do a fair bit of writing and journalism.
There's a lot of writing and journalism, sure. I'm a longtime columnist for many different outlets. I've written for places as wide-ranging as, I was one of the original copywriters for Bing. I write a column for Ladders on careers. I'm a longtime columnist for Parade. I was an opinion columnist for AM New York and for USA Today. I wrote an article in the New York Times on Wonder Woman, and Director Patty Jenkins mentioned it in a different article. She said it made her cry. That was one of the high points of my life. I love Wonder Woman, and hearing that the director of Wonder Woman wept reading one of my articles made me very happy. I do a lot of, not a lot, but I've done ghostwriting. I wrote a best-selling book for someone under her name, so that was kind of frustrating to me that I couldn't crow about it. But for a while I was lecturing. My second book was Career and Corporate Cool, and I did a lot on personal branding. And, a lot of what I write about is I guess, how to stand out while being yourself, while being part of the team. So, gosh, I write for a lot of people.
That is quite the portfolio. Rachel, where is the best place for people to find you online to kind of check out what you have going on?
I'm pretty good about updating my Twitter at RachelCW. I have a Facebook page by Rachel Weingarten, and I'm in the process of making RachelWeingarten.com more of an umbrella site. And I'm trying to be better about blogging at rachelsfaves.com. But you can Google me. You'll find me anywhere.
All right, great. We'll include those links in the show notes. Rachel, thank you so much for joining today. It's been a really great conversation.
Thank you so much, Will. So much fun. Stay safe, and I hope you make lots of egg noodles.
All right, thanks a lot.
Okay, take care.
And Rachel was referring to the fact that we mentioned before the show that we have 15 hens out in the hen house giving us about a dozen eggs a day. If you have been thinking about reviewing this show on iTunes and giving it a 5-star review, now would be a fantastic time to do it. If you're thinking about giving it 4 stars or less, then just send me an email with your feedback, and I'll love to hear it. It was great having Rachel on the show today. Again, check the show notes for those links, and we'll see you next time.